right, we are up. This is the Our Town podcast, and it is Cinco de Mayo, even though this won't come out for a few weeks from now. Well, today is Cinco de Mayo, and yesterday was May the 4th be with you. And today I have Carla Stiles with me from Designed by Carla, and I'm going to introduce her in just a second, but I want to give a shout out and a quick plug for our platinum sponsor, TPG Incorporated. That's Lisa DeFalco. Again, if you haven't gone and listened to episode 60 and or watched it, it's a good one. And today's episode with Carla should be very similar as we talk to a woman who started her own business, entrepreneur, and which Carla did coming out of Newark, New Jersey. And in short, they basically provide quality assurance to customer contact centers. So anytime you call and hear the words, your call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes, well, that was literally invented by Lisa. And she talks about that in the episode where she went to, when this whole concept was being talked about and getting approvals and regulations had to be passed, she went to a big customer, kind of like a convention type thing. And they're like, so wait a minute, what is it that's going on? Well, no longer are we just going to listen in live, but we're actually going to record the phone calls. What? So that's very revolutionary. That's a huge paradigm shift. And there's, they I guess they question, well, how is the customer going to be aware? And like, well, why don't we come up with something like, this is literally just spur of the moment. Why don't we come up with something like your call may be monitored for quality assurance? So TPG has, in the 26-year history, they now have an AI platform called Anna. So you'll see when you go to their website, say, meet Anna, because they do some 15 to 20 million calls per month. And now we live in a cloud-based infrastructure world where a lot of that video and audio, of course, can be stored. And humans can no longer mine through 15 million calls. So how do you do that? Well, you need some sort of powerful ingestion processes and such that can do data analytics, and Anna is doing that. So it's helping them mine through. I think she said she had a good call. There's like 307 attributes to a good phone call, and Anna then is built. The algorithm is built on that, and it's looking for different things. So then it can spit out, very powerful analytics, so that customers can get their data and find out, hey, what do customers really think? What's the volume? Is the volume going up or down or calls? Are people that are working the call center, are they satisfying the call? Are they satisfying the concern, whatever it may be? So shout out to TPG, and we're glad they're on board. And with that, we're going to start our episode. And Carla is here, and she just came from an event this morning. So why don't we start with that? Let's just start with what event you went to over off of Holmes Avenue. Rise, I guess, and yes. And talk us through that.
Well, I was invited with Vicki Morris, and we did a marketing panel last year, and then this year she extended it out and added a few others to the marketing panel. And what we did is we did segmented communication of presenting some of our more specific aspects of our of what we're specialized in. And I talked about SEO and the factors of what that should play into your business. And so that was a very good performance today. We had a lot of people there today to take notes and ask questions. So it was a really great turnout for Vicki and for Rise events. So those have been also a huge part in my business over the years. When I first came to Huntsville, it was probably one of my first networking events that I actually went to. It was called, I think, Hot Coffee at the time, and then she converted it over to Rise. And she plays a huge part in the community, getting people involved and listening to different people in different industries. And I think she's just a great support for different industries. Whether we're in the same type of industry, she still makes us feel like we're all still a part of that with her. So
now here's the flyer. If we look at that, you can either look at above me or to your right. So again, Carla Stiles has her own company. It's president, CEO, founder, owner, if you will, of Designed by Carla. I've been in business 26 years. 22 years.
Well, officially this year in May will be 22 years with Designed by Carla, but well over 25 years of experience and a long time.
Right.
I think I've lost count.
Well, and obviously throughout this episode, we'll dive into more and more of that. But here's the other panel members, and it just so happens that Erica from All Things Madison is going to be on, I think in June. I think I have her scheduled for next month.
She's amazing.
I keep thinking it's April, and we're
Yeah.
already into May, and I keep thinking June's like, oh, it's 2 months away. No, it's next
I think
month.
that everybody on that panel today had something that to offer, and they all have their different personalities and perspectives, and they all represented very well in their industry. And it's great to be surrounded by those types of people that, you know, really want to support each other. So great group of people.
And so it was an hour long?
Yes, and it was an hour long. It was, you know, you get together, have coffee, and then after you get to meet, you know, the people that have attended, you get to swap cards, and you know, of course, questions are asked, and, you know, you kind of help that support, extend that information out there for people that needs to know.
And there's other things that you're involved with, but I thought that this is topical. You literally just came from there.
Yes.
But so, like, you know, in the networking aspect, right? Like, I go to these as well, and you have somebody's going to approach you, and sometimes they know you, and they're gonna kind of ask. They might even be aware of something that is a follow-on to a conversation you had previously. And it's like, hey, well, Carla, how's it going with this or that? And then there's other people who, if it's only SEO, that doesn't also take into account all the other things that you do. So, I mean, you've done a lot in your 22 years of Design by Carla. But, I mean, how do you, I guess, effectively summarize kind of all of your offerings when you approach someone that's just not familiar with all of who you are?
I think that's one of the biggest questions that a lot of people ask me is, you know, over the years, it's like, what do you do? Because a lot of times people didn't even know the name of my company. They just knew my name. They were like, Carla. I've been called a lot of different names, positive names, not, you know, but, you know, like, you know, the computer lady or the SEO guru. I mean, there's so much history in where I started to where I'm at today. So, you know, there's just so much that has changed, and especially in this industry. But as far as like what I'll offer, what I specialize in, I think is what really is important. And that's the strategy to move businesses online and getting them to understand the importance and what they should be investing back into. And that's, you know, creating that good quality SEO, targeting those audience to find their needs and products that they need, they're offering on their website or their business, because that is the part that really generates those leads and inquiries, you know, to close those deals. I mean, our job is in marketing to create those leads. And I think those things that are additional to that, which I call it the unicorn dust, is adding that consistency with social media management and writing those additional content pieces that's focus oriented around those, you know, SEO strategies, with, you know, creating some topic clusters of information that is more focused in on your business. And I think that we've hold the weight of social media over the years, that it's really exciting to see the circle of change happening, where you're seeing more and more people investing more into their business with their website. And it's not just a holding spot on a business card. So I like that aspect, that evolution is starting to come back, because that's been the focal point for me for 22 years. That's why some of my businesses have started out very small, and now they're big. They're companies. They start out small. So what? You know, you can grow if you put the time and effort in, because it is a long time investment. It's not a one-time deal. It's not, you know, sitting down for 5 minutes and then all of a sudden snapping your fingers and there's a solution. Yeah. So there's so much more into web design work. You know, it's the embodiment of just creating that information. You're the portal. You're to provide that solution to their problem. And if you're not conveying that, then you've lost your audience.
So do you feel then like the core aspect of no matter what you do is a strong website?
Yes.
And that's your anchor point, if you will. And then everything is an appendage off of that.
Well, the anchor point is just getting started to understand the the aspect of that design,
Okay.
right? So a pretty website is, when you start thinking about when you designed websites, we used to code them from start from beginning to end, right? And so nowadays it's like, when can I go purchase a theme? And those are perfectly fine. But in the aspect of that, there's places that things belong in, and the content that you're trying to convey is got to be so simple, very easy, and not confusing to your audience. And so what is important is to get that audience to stay on that website, to find what they're looking for, whether it's just looking for a product or service that you're offering, or just the expertise of what you're trying to show off. It's not necessarily the bragging aspect, but just what is it that you offer, and how much do you know, right? Because, we can all super, aspect, but the SEO, content strategy, and a website is the three main components when you're starting your business out. Yeah. And it is a continuation. It's not just, okay, it's done, let's walk away from it. It is a huge building block, and it's continuously to be that way.
So when I was thinking, we were talking a little bit before we hit record about my logo and just kind of the beginnings and how did I get it created, and what I'm definitely from, we're from the old school a little bit, right? Yeah. We're about the same age. And when I would think of anybody starting a business that's kind of in our generation, it kind of starts with the website. Websites have been around the whole time of my professional life and different endeavors I've tried to do before. But how often are people starting, they just have Instagram, they just have Facebook or Pinterest or something like that, and it's eye-opening or revolutionary in a way for them, that you explain to them, well, you kind of need a website as well. Is that something that's deemed old-fashioned in to some degree, or maybe not a primary objective when some entrepreneurs start and they think about marketing?
Well, I'm not going to say that don't do social media. I think there are businesses that are very, very successful in their social media focus. The problem is sometimes people spread themselves way too thin when it comes to social media. They add everything, including the kitchen sink, when you should be more focusing on what's working for your types of businesses. Not every business belongs on every single platform. And so, some things do work. And back in the day, social media did work. I mean, Facebook organically did very good. We were looking at a 10% return. Now we're not even looking at that now. What is really working right now on social media is LinkedIn. So we're seeing a huge change in the business-to-business entities of going from Facebook to LinkedIn to kind of grasp that natural networking, because it's really changing that market. Now Instagram, I think, is just a great tool, but there are some very successful people that are using it. So I can't say that don't start there. Yeah. I can say that you should be. It's a part. It's just a major component. Websites are part of your business, and it's part of you getting out there, because if you don't have a website, how do you build your email subscribers? Yeah. They've got to come to you and say they can trust you. Do you add value to what you market? And so a website is the grounding source. It is your salesperson. It's the gateway of getting people out there.
Yeah, and I guess to kind of complete my thought is there's also that aspect of you don't want someone to get lost. And like, if I have a potential, if a viewer comes across the podcast, same thing for you with your podcast, Coffee and Hustle.
Right.
I'll show your webpage in here in a second. I don't want someone to discover me maybe just through Instagram and not know, oh, he has a website as well. Like somehow you have to keep putting in the breadcrumbs that lead the trail back to the website, and then everything needs to connect together. So if I'm doing something on YouTube, which is very different for me, I have to, like, YouTube is separate in the way there's the upload process and how you do your descriptions and all that kind of stuff. But then there's everything else, Spotify, Google, and that's a different upload process and a different RSS feed. And then all those things, how do they know that Our Town Podcast has a website, right? And it's like you just never want anyone stranded on an island, I guess is kind of the point I'm making, which then ultimately is really important that, okay, well, then what happens when they land on the website? Then what? right? And I know I have some improvement there, but do you kind of have those conversations with people where you need to make sure that it all ties together and you don't strand people?
Yes. I think that's the first thing I look at. Mm-hmm. And when I'm meeting with a client or talking to a client, it's like, okay, there's some work that needs to be done and organizing your thought process and strategies that, it's not so much data related, in aspects is if you don't have a website that's working for you, then you're going to ask, why is my traffic not coming to my website? Why is things not working? Why am I not being found? You have to understand that there's some technical aspects to it. There's a lot of SEO factors that go into play. So you can't just go, when you were looking at the website aspect, it's got to go hand in hand. And, if one thing doesn't work, then you can go, okay, well, maybe there's something on my website that's not conveying correctly. Or maybe there's some pieces in that website that people are actually looking for that's called niche industry, where people might want more of. And if you really tailor to that, then you're tailoring to that audience and you're tailoring to that need. You might find out that primary aspect of your business may not be as successful as your secondary part of your business. And I've had businesses over the years that their secondary businesses actually outperform their primary aspects. So it just depends. I've got more of a nerdy technical idea of things. So I don't look at it as being just pretty. It's like, how would the website perform with Google, right? Because it owns 92% of our global search market, right? So you have to understand that there's a balance between the two. If Google can't find it, you can't get it in front of people, and if people are not reacting to it, then you're kind of losing a battle. So as far as social media goes, all of that plays a part. It's a big puzzle, and it can be overwhelming. But it's like, you got to start in an organized structure where when somebody comes to you, these are the things that you should have a conversation about. And it's got to be honest, So even if you want to start with social media, I'm going to give you 6 months and then we're going to start working on these other pieces, and I'm going to start throwing these other numbers out there and I'm going to start talking about other things. So you kind of nurture that client to get them to understand, because with social media, they see immediate results. They see that people like it, comment, whatever. And then okay, I can see it. But with a website, the data can be not as interesting because they're numbers and they don't understand bounce rates. They don't understand CTR. They don't understand. So there's so many other avenues. And then they start talking about putting out ads. Well, if your website doesn't convey the right information, then why do you think an ad's going to perform?
Yeah. Before we go to your website, let me just tell you something funny from yesterday. So I had sent you an email request quite late in the process. Normally, I send my guests the same questions to be answered, and I'll figure out how to use those. And I don't know why. Sometimes I forget, and I need to have a better process for sending it automatically 3 or 4 weeks out. And my wife's going to help me with that kind of stuff. And so I send it 2 days out. And I try to be really careful. I don't want to say please respond as soon as possible, because my failure to plan does not, doesn't constitute an emergency on your part. But then I'm listening to your Coffee and Hustle podcast. And it's your new series, the Power Series, I think, right?
Power Circle. Yes.
Power Circle.
Well, we call it the Power Talk, but we've not decided anything with power in it. It's basically what we're saying yes to. Power Talk, Power Circle, Power Girls, Power Women.
Well, and I realized that, so you guys were talking about boundaries. And it was like, hey, I silenced my phone at 8 p.m. And you're like, that's really good for you, and you had one of you had made a comment. If your friend calls you and is like, hey, I need to talk, and it's probably going to be an hour long, what do you do? And the one friend's like, no. Or the one other lady, might
have been Lori.
Lori was like, well, no. I just tell them, sorry, I don't have time, or I have to set boundaries. And I immediately started feeling bad, like, well, here's Carla, where I've just sent her this email, and I've asked her, whatever else you have going on in life, you're busy. We're all busy. And now I've in my failure to plan, I've just said, hey, I really need you to turn this around. And I was about to write to you and just be like, you know what? Forget it.
Just wing it.
Well, I don't need you. I don't need your answers.
We'll just
I'm
wing
sorry.
it.
I just listened to your podcast and I feel bad that I even asked.
No, I don't feel bad. No, I mean, I knew it was coming up and I was like, okay, how do I prepare for this? Listen, I don't know about you, but I talk to myself, well, not out loud, but, I've been preparing because I'm thinking, when we first initially talked a while back, right, we did talk about setting up and doing a podcast together and, spreading it out a little bit. And I thought, what have I got to offer? You know what I mean? Like, what is it that makes me different than other people? And because it's just such an honor that you asked me to even come on today, because I'm like, okay, what are we going to talk about? I'm pretty, the Power Circle Power Talk that I did with Lori and Maria really is just an eye-opening experience, because those thoughts and theories that goes ramping through your head is things that, I think some of us all think about a little bit, and we get so busy sometimes and we become robotic. And so how do you set up things that make you happy? And I think that's where a lot of change is happening for me right now, is like figuring it out. I was so busy trying to be a mom and trying to run my business. I'm busier now with my business now that my kids are all gone. They're all out in college, and
sure.
I'm putting more hours in, and I'm thinking, why? Why am I doing this to myself? And so, but I can't stop. It's like it's almost an addiction. Everybody, I'm addicted to my work. I love it. And so I can't say there's times where I need a break, but I don't know anything different. So I'm learning to putting a stop on certain things.
Well, this is what Lisa and I just talked about in episode 60. She commented on, her superpower is the fact that she never stops, she never quits, she never gives up. She's not going to be outworked, is basically hers. No one's going to outwork her. And so she was picking up her son from daycare. She was like that parent that was always 20 minutes late, 30 minutes late. I don't know if they fined people at that time. She didn't talk about that, and then she went back to work and took her boy, single parent. And so we were talking about how, there are opportunities, I guess, where people who are entrepreneurs can set their schedule and they can work when they want to work, and that's fine. But I think the point she was trying to make was, depending on what your level of success is or where you really want to take your business, that may be a fantasy. That's not a reality, because you are going to have to put in a lot of hours and a lot of effort and a lot of work. And I believe you even mentioned that it's easy to give up, but it's harder just to keep going, right? But
yeah.
And whatever, every business is different, of course, and it's not to say everybody has to make a ton of money or whatever the measure of success is, but at the same time, it require a lot of effort and a lot of time on someone's part, and most likely on the founder's part. This is your thing. I'm not sure if that's something that you're going to achieve where you want to, 9 to 5. And now you have your kids out of the house, and that's cool. You're a different stage of life, and you can put more time. And maybe it's not 9 to 5, but over the course of 7 days and all the hours in each day, and you can still go to the gym, you can still do things you want, but you're also putting a lot of time and attention to Design by Carla. Accurate?
Yeah. Well, I've learned to put. I'm doing more for myself a little bit more than I used to. Mm-hmm. And going back to that, what you were just saying is that when we talk about hard work, right? No one loves your business more than yourself. Mm-hmm. Like when you're the owner of it, no one has the passion and drive more than the owner. It is a very hard. I mean, when I think about 22 years of the official Design by Carla, I think back before that, I was side hustling and doing websites before that. You know what I mean? Before I officially quit my corporate job to just actually stay home and, with twins, I had twin babies, boy and girl, and then an older little girl at the time. And remote work was unheard of. Mm-hmm. Having an office at your home was not normal. And so I think that the reason why I can say I bend the rules of my hours is that I tried having office space, last year, but I felt more anxiety trying to get there, trying to fit that model where that model didn't fit me. And so I am not an office space. I do have people that work for me that are remote, and I'm okay with that because it gives them the freedom to go and do what they want to as long as they achieve their success. My job now is to figure out where my focus needs to be at more, because I don't want to be anything and everything when it comes to marketing. I don't really necessarily like that particular term so much. I think that we're thrown into that kitchen sink because that's just what people are used to, right? We use it because that's a term that marketing, the word marketing. But I do think that we have to figure out where our focus is and where our drive is. And so I have actually sat down and really refocused on what I would like to do with my business more. And so there's going to be some things that are going to change a little bit more this coming year. And I'm looking at my calendar more and spending more time taking some days off. I am taking Saturdays off. I'm taking Sundays off where I wasn't before. I was always over preparing myself, always rethinking.
You said recently you took your first vacation, real vacation you had taken in like 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
Yeah, you had busied yourself enough, and you had some good stuff going on with your property and your house and all that. But at the same time, you just get embroiled in these kind of commitments, right? And it kind of snowballs. And you're like, well, wait a minute, I need some time to recharge.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't realize that. I guess in some ways or another, I didn't take time out. I was always making an excuse on not taking time off. And so this year, it's all about rediscovering what I like and what I want to do, and taking my calendar and forecasting, hey, I'm going to take these days off, and forcing myself to do it. Even during December, I've never taken the holiday off, and I actually took 3 weeks off, no meetings.
Good for you.
I worked half a day, and I took some time off to refigure out what makes me tick a little bit more, so that I'm in tune to what my clients' needs are, and so it was it's time for a new leaf for me. I think I deserve that. I've been in it long enough to say I can do that now.
Yeah. And just to kind of tie a bow on why I brought this up, look, and every home-based business is different, but if you're in a business like yours and you have a customer, and I'm assuming there's deadlines, you have set a deadline for a campaign that you're going to do, or a new website, an overhaul. And even if you have people working for you, ultimately at the end of the day, you are responsible for the overall quality of that delivery. And you have, so there's an inspection on, even if you delegated it out, right, you're going to probably have a final say or a review of what was done. And if it's not to your standard, then it has to be done by a certain date, in a way, right? And that's kind of what I was getting at, is the buck stops with someone.
Yes.
And then ultimately, in most businesses with customers and deadlines, there may be a significant number of hours that are expended, unplanned or otherwise, in order to deliver that, right? And I think that's where people have to be careful when it's like, oh, I'm just going to work for myself and it's going to be real easy. Well, it depends on what expectations are being set.
Well, I don't know about you, but I mean, I think marketing is changing a lot more now in the past year and a half now. I would say even after COVID, I think we're starting to see the domino effect more. I think that there's more anxiety and expectations and things to still work the same way before COVID and so during COVID, I didn't lose any clients. It was great. Everybody still moved and grooved the way, and some even actually expanded their business and thought differently on how to, get their clients online. So for me, it's like now I see more anxiety. I see more stress levels are higher now for certain clients. And you have to kind of go, okay, how do I organize this thought process for you? Because now I'm taking on your energy.
Yeah.
You're calling me and you're high strung, or, hey, let's rethink this and how we're doing this. And the same way you've been working with your marketing doesn't necessarily work the same way today. So yes, I have to put those deadlines in place. And so, yes, the buck stops with me.
Yeah.
I train the people that work for me we have certain expectations and deliverables on certain things. So they do a very good job. And I don't have to stress over that so much. And so putting those right people in those right places know that knowledge is good too, you know.
So let's go. When you were at Troy University, right? And I love that because it's my name. My middle name's Troy.
Of course, it's Troy. Matches you.
And you paid your way through school.
I did.
You mentioned, but the first thing I want to ask is, even though after the fact you worked on computers and you were technical, and there wasn't a lot of females in that world doing that, and that's an awesome skill. When I think about like certain things that I'm grateful for, I'm grateful that I learned how to type. You know, in a typing class in like high school. And I'm also grateful I grew up in an era where you could take the backing off of a PC and see the motherboard, and like at the time you could like do your own maintenance. You know, you could build your own machine, and they become more and more sophisticated. And in fact, a lot of manufacturers, like, you can't even get into the guts anymore.
They don't want it. They seal it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you break the seal, then you lose you lose the integrity.
The same thing with like cars. They become so computerized you can't even fix them. You have to take them somewhere because they're going to download a patch probably to the computer that runs the car.
Yeah.
But were there other courses when, now that you think back, so you have the technical side, you know, and SEO is all about it has a programming background, and you understand how to create a user interface in the back end, and you know, maybe even making calls out to a database and setting up data and stuff like that. But do you also, when you talk about managing employees or customers and they call you and everything's hair's on fire, do you refer back to psychology or sociology or other courses, and you're like, you know what, I thought that'd be a big pile of waste of time back then, but I'm so glad that I have that knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, So I use, I guess somebody said to me one time, it's like, you sell without selling.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just really calm in the atmosphere when there's people coming at you with different questions and different avenues, and it really all works the same way. So no matter what type of client that I have, because I have different industries that I work with, the platform pretty much is almost the same. The path is pretty much in the same direction. But when I get that call, or when they're trying to figure it out, I result back to what I learned, you know, is how to be relatable. How do I become that person for them, that support system? Because support was really important back then. You know, people would call in. When I was first out of college, I got a job with Lloyd's Computers, mm-hmm. and they were the only ones that had given me the opportunity to actually come in, and I was really the female tech. Along with all the guys that were there, and they taught me a lot of stuff. Like, they taught me networks and computers, and we built machines, and we did servers and Cat5s, and I have my own crimping tools. So there's,
really?
Yeah, I did. And so I learned a lot about customer service, being that person, that support for those people. So it was not just school, but also that beginning support in the very beginning that helped me be relatable to my client base that I have today. I am very straightforward and honest with them, and they know that. Mm-hmm. And I don't, cookie cut or anything. And I don't put a cloud over it. It's very clear directions for them.
Here, look to your right. Does this like bring back memories? Look at those machines. And that's probably like an old Pentium, or I think I paid $1,000 for my first. And it was like a Pentium 233, something like that.
So I had, wait, okay. I'm going to tell y'all something. I bought my first computer. That was the first time I ever had a charge card.
Oh, really?
Because I was in college, and I was paying my way, and I didn't have the money, and I needed a computer, and I didn't have a way to get a computer. So I actually got my first credit card to buy my first computer, because it was so expensive back then. It was, mm-hmm. But I remember dial-up. So I remember that first image coming through, and it was just like in segments. It was like ding, ding, it was like pieces of it coming through the dial-up, and that sound will never go away, right. But yeah, that I've built so much of that, those inner pieces of those computers. But that was the best way to learn.
Yeah,
that to me, it was like it's that as, oh yes, that
motherboard.
That's probably my computer right there. Yes, I built my own custom machine at one time. That's probably mine right there.
So how often does a customer come in when you were working at Lloyd's and they think that's some super difficult problem and it's like you just need a new fan, you need a new battery or something?
Well, we did a lot of his business was connected with a lot of accounting with accounting businesses, and so we would go out and do point of sale, accounting software and point of sale peripherals. So we set up the machines, the workstations, and then we network everything together. We would definitely be the support because we remember Y2K, right? So I was there when Y2K was starting, and that was one of the craziest years I've ever experienced because it took forever to export out data from the software because we had to upgrade. So we had to, not only did we have to build the computers, set them up, get the software installed, import the information, we had to turn around and teach these people how to use their own computers. So, because they didn't even know how to use a mouse. So I got that one phone call. I know it's funny, but I did get a phone call from somebody saying, Carla, my cup holder broke on my computer. And I said,
oh, it's the CD-ROM.
I said, excuse me? I said, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. But it still brings back memories because, it's the, I'm sorry. What cup holder are you talking about in your computer? And she goes, well, that thing where at the top where it comes in and out, you push that button and it pulls it out. And
oh my gosh.
And I had to pause on the phone for a minute because I didn't want to laugh, because it was an older lady and I'm so sorry. But I had to go, ma'am, that's not a cup holder. That's where your CDs go. Oh, well, I thought that's where my cup belonged. She goes, we may need to replace that. Yes, that's going to be expensive.
She's spilling on it.
But it was, I think it was the old time rule. I don't know if the Saturday Night skit is funny to me, where the guy comes in there and he tells him, he's got a problem with his computer, and it's like, just move. Well, that was basically what we do. We tell you, get out of the way and let's just fix it, or hey, let's shut it down, because that was always let's shut it down, bring it back up, let's reboot.
I went to I worked for my sister as a travel agent, and this was like 1999. She had her own business up in the upstairs of her house, actually very similar to this room that we're sitting in, quite frankly. And I go out to a training because at the time Trans World Airlines, TWA, was around. I can't remember what happened. I don't know if they got bought or they went defunct, but anyway, I go out to learn how to use the system. And if you've ever seen a travel agent, if you've ever been a travel agent, they do a lot of typing. And they're basically typing into a mainframe.
Yeah.
And they still do that. They still will type lines and lines, and there's like these long commands that you type for the simplest
command prompt.
Yeah, it's like,
I remember that. I did a lot of that.
It was like 4PLF, which was like search everything for fares, and then you would put in the city codes, and there was a lot of practical knowledge. A lot of
asterisks, dots.
Yeah, and then you would book travel just without a mouse and without an interface. It was crazy. So anyway, I go out to this, but at the same time, we were using computers. Like Windows 98 was out, 2000 was probably on its way. So people were now using computers on a regular basis. And we go to this training course, and at the first part of it, we're just going through a tutorial, and we're using our mouse. And there's this one lady who has to stop the class and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do this." And rightfully so, the instructor's like, "Well, then you just need to not be in this course until you learn, because you're going to slow everybody down. If you can't basically just use a keyboard and a mouse, then I'm sorry."
Wow.
That has to be a prerequisite.
Right.
Right. Even if we're going to get into all of the nuts and bolts of it, it was still more of a training where it's just guiding us through a CBT or something,
Yeah.
But I just looked at her like, what planet did you come from?
Yeah.
And
well, I do remember there was this one case where I had to go down to, I think it's around Foley, and we were putting in new computers, and it was, and of course it was their point of sale software programs, and then integrating it into the accounting softwares, because that's what I did. And so when the guys didn't want to deal with the software, they would send me out. So, that was just bonus. That was extra commission work for me, right? So it was like, send Carla out. And I'm like, yes.
Why didn't they want to do it?
Because Okay, because it was that person to person relationship.
Oh.
They wanted to come in and set up the machines.
Introverted.
They wanted to walk out. Well, they were totally nerds. Nerds were not cool back then.
Yeah.
I mean, we're cool now.
Yeah.
Right? We're geeky, fun, nerdy people. Come on. That's cool now. We're sexy. We're sexy nerd people.
Right.
But back then it was like, oh, you're a nerd. And so, kind of hid in the corner. So these guys were, in some ways or another, they wanted me to be the one to interface with people, train them on the softwares. And I had to go out and teach these older ladies how to use their point of sale software for the first time. They had to learn how to use the software, the mouse, the Microsoft program for it,
the printer.
The printer. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother story. I kid you not. And because you don't remember the first printers that came out, they were not exactly the smallest ones, and they were not fun. But when I taught them, I actually wrote them a step-by-step manual. Mm-hmm. Step 1, turn on your computer. Step 2, turn on the monitor. You know what I mean? It's like, it was those steps. And if I could teach them, I could teach anybody.
And if it doesn't come on, make sure it's plugged in.
Yes, please do not unplug the computer. Yeah. There was a lot of that. Oh, it was unplugged. Yes. So it was a lot. I have to say that was probably my favorite job besides my business. That was my favorite job, hands down. Lloyd was he was just a joy to be around. He taught me a lot, and he didn't care I was a female. He wanted me to learn, and he really kind of upped my game. I just did not know where my future was going at that time. I mean, you got to think way back, right? We didn't have cell phones, and we were cool if we had a beeper.
I know. Maybe
a bag phone.
So was this is while you were working at Lloyd's while you were at Troy University?
No, I actually graduated.
Okay.
So I was working in a design industry, and I was working with, as a program manager, I installed signs, like, pylon signs and signs on front of the house, in front of the businesses. I worked all over the United States with that. So
really,
yeah, I dealt with a lot of people that loved my Southern accent.
You got to travel a lot.
I did travel a lot, but I was super excited when I came home because I got to eat my banana sandwiches and, sorry, but
it's okay.
Banana sandwiches and,
with peanut butter?
No peanut butter. It was banana sandwiches, mayonnaise, and black pepper.
Wow. Okay.
That's old school. Pineapple sandwiches, peanut butter. Yeah, peanut butter was like in a swirly can it was Bama jelly, swirl with grape jelly and peanut butter straight from the jar. No bread.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a treat.
Wow. Okay. I was just thinking, at some point I got into, this is going to sound weird, peanut butter with pickles and maybe even a little sugar. And I would, sometimes if we had bananas, I'd use bananas and peanut butter. And then other times somebody convinced me to do peanut butter and pickle, and I liked it.
I was addicted to cheese toast.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, cheese toast was my favorite thing in the world. Because cheese toast and then Rice Krispie Treats, the cereal with lots of sugar in it, right? That was my go-to. So that was comfort food when I got home because I would travel so much and we would go out to eat all the time, and which was great. I got to experience a lot of different things back then, and we had private jets, so I got to go into private jets.
Oh my goodness!
Fly and red carpet. I felt special, by the way. It was super cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I got to do that a lot. It was so much fun. It was a great job. I met, and all of us had a really great time doing it. But I was in my degree at that time, and I could have continued on, but I wanted the opportunity to work in the IT department. I thought they were super cool. I wanted to be over there with them, and so I was trying to get myself over into that department at the sign company, and I couldn't get there because they wanted me to stay in program management, which was making them a lot of money, right? And so I had to do this thing where you didn't know a lot of people, right? There wasn't networking systems set up for us to find other jobs in our industry. It was like, who do you know? And then I got a phone call from a person that I knew that was saying, hey, I've got this job for you. If you want to go get it, it's at Lloyd's Computers. And I'm like, who's Lloyd's Computers? And it was a family-owned business, and it was just it was a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. The guys were cool. They treated me like I was a sister. No, I always felt comfortable going out on the job listings with them, and I got to meet all kinds of different people. And I think that started me going, where do I want to go in my career? But if I did not have that opportunity, I don't know where I would be right now.
So when you were jet setting and you were a program manager, was there just not a tremendous upside other than if you owned that company? I mean, you may have just touched on this, but what was the limiting factor to having that as a future? It seemed like you enjoyed it.
I did.
Or is that just kind of, there are certain jobs out there that are only kind of for the young. When you're young and you've got energy and you don't have a lot of commitments, is it that type of thing?
Well, it was very fast paced, and I was gone a lot. I was probably traveling a lot more than I was at home. Mm-hmm. And not that I didn't want to do it. It was a point in time where I was like, I paid my way through school and I got this degree. What do I do with it? And I had a programming degree, and when I graduated, I didn't have the experience. Mm-hmm. I had no experience. I had no outside experience other than just a few hours working at the mainframe in the computer lab at the college, but no one actually would hire me as a programmer. And it was like, okay, this is frustrating. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I came to that road. I was like, do I either stay in what I was doing, which I was making really good money, traveling a lot, handling really good accounts. I had a solid future, but then I was like, so I had to make a decision, and this is the part where I had to make that. I kind of came to the fork in the road, and I decided to turn right.
Gotcha. Isn't that amazing too? When you think back, I don't know, did you have a particular, other than the person just contacting you, was there someone else in your life though that just said something and it kind of resonated and it kind of gave you that confidence to like go to that right fork versus the left fork? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much history in the way I grew up that my father was probably the main person that really pushed me to start my business. Mm-hmm. And I really had a problem with, accepting that, because it was like, not a lot of females were in that industry at this time, being a web designer, and at the time there was no SEO. There was nothing ever heard about that. Website was just starting. Mm-hmm. You were lucky to get a 3 or 5 page website design at that time.
Right.
You were, maybe a business card layout, You
were using Front Page?
Well, that was my first class I took because I wanted to learn. What happened was there was a guy upstairs in Lloyd's Computers, and I went upstairs. I was working on some networking, Cat5 cabling for a job that we're about to do. And he was sitting at his computer, and I just happened to walk by, and he had a screen up, and it was a kind of like a business card. I don't even know if there was a logo on it. I think it's just like a name, phone number, maybe. Right. I think it may have had an email. I'm not sure. But that was it. And I was like, what is that? And so that's how it started. And I'm like, how did they get that? Because I knew programming. I was like, how did they program that to get it there? I did not know those. I know that sounds dumb now, but that was the basis of like, how did they get that from where? Where did they get that from? And how did they get it there? So I started doing some research, and there was a professor that was teaching Front Page at the community college down in Florida. And I went on a Saturday to take the programming class, and it was so basic. And I was like, what? I can do this. This is like awesome, because I wanted to be creative, but then like, where does this go? And so Front Page did not last very long. It was almost like in a brief intro into where I went. And that was into micromedia programs like Dreamweaver, Adobe Flash, so forth. And those are things that we didn't go to school for at the beginning. It was like there wasn't classes for that. Yeah. So website design started out just really basic. I did some logo design work. That was, I think back, I'm going, how much work did I really do? Like, how many logos did I design over the years, and how many websites have I done? I've kind of lost that count. And but my father said, what are you doing with your life? And I said, what do you mean? And this is before I found out that I was going to have twins. My little girl was in preschool, and he says, you've got to do this. And I'm like, Dad, you're crazy. There's no way. No one's going to do work with I'm in a field that no one really, I'm hello, I'm a girl. And he goes, it doesn't matter. You need to do this. And I said, well, what do I call myself? He goes, Designed by Carla.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, what?
That's cool.
I said, no. I said, Dad, nobody's going to, it's got my name in it. It's a girl name. He goes, it doesn't matter. It's what they need to know. They need to know your name. Carla. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because he was an entrepreneur. He was like I call him the original OG. He was one of these, it was just magic. He could start a business and he was very, very good at it. When he talked, you better listen. And I was like, so I pondered about it and I just like, okay, all right, let me see what I can do. And then it was just like, all right, let's do this. And I prayed a lot.
I bet.
When I first started, it was like, well, how do I get people to know me? How do I build a business? I had no clue because those things were not there. And networking was not available. I was a mom at that time when I finally stopped my corporate job at Freedom Communications because everybody was getting jealous. Like, you shouldn't be working at home. You should go get a real job. And I'm like, I have got a real job.
Yeah.
So I stayed home and launched the corporate. I just decided to do this. Both feet, no net.
And you were married at the time?
I was married at the time, yes. And so, yeah, there was a lot of late nights.
So I'm going to take a leap here, but I think this is your father.
Oh.
Is this him?
Yeah.
And this is impressive. This is his obituary.
Oh.
He died 11 years ago. But you have to fill in the blanks here. And then your grandmother as well.
Yes,
okay?
Gigi.
But Mike invented and reinvented himself in business time and time again.
Yes.
Mike was born, in Brooklyn, New York. I love you know what? Like, I love Italians and I love Sicilian, those from Sicily. Like, it just seems like the fabric of our country has been built on those are immigrated from Italy.
Well, I can tell you my father was true Jewish.
Jewish?
Yes, Jewish. He was, him and Gigi, my grandmother Gigi, were absolutely inspiring, and so he was a pivoting point in my life.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's even actually hard to see him in a photo right now.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well,
No.
I'll read and then we'll get past the photo.
Okay, that's fine.
But one of my natural questions when you were in Dothan. Well, here's the answer, and I was going to ask you, well, how did you get to Dothan? Well, it says after attending Columbia, Mike and his family moved to Dothan, chasing a dream of owning a radio station. As a radio station owner, Mike, a.k.a. Dr. Jive, and his family brought rock and roll to the South. Mike was also a concert promoter, owned the Southeast franchise of Budget Rental Car, was given a master's in donutology when he owned a Mr. Donut franchise, and even dabbled in the unfinished furniture business with a hardware store aptly named Mighty Mike's Hardware. There's the name, right? You put your name in your business. In the late 1990s, Mike reinvented himself again, becoming an executive recruiter in a new thing called cable television. His gut, again, was right on. He moved to Denver and formed Media Management Resources, which became the nation's preeminent retained search firm in building the executive ranks of cable and telephone companies like Time Warner and AT&T, to name a few. And he went on to, from that came Intelligent Management Solutions, delivering interim executives on assignments. We'll stop there. Well, that when I read that, I'm like, well, if you ever wonder where the entrepreneurial spirit comes from, that's your father.
Yes, my dad.
And that seems
there is a story.
I'm sure there is. And please, if you want, tell it.
So I grew up, my mother got pregnant with me out of wedlock with my father. And the short story was that I was supposed to be given up for adoption in Flint, Michigan. She decided to bring me back home. So I grew up majority of my life as a child without him in it. And I was not, and then I think I was in maybe my junior year in college. Kind of a weird accident happened where there was a huge flood that came through, and I was living with my grandmother at the time. I was going to school. I was driving from Dothan to Geneva County, outside of Hartford, Alabama, every single night. So I would probably get home at 10, 11 o'clock at night. She would cook me something to eat. I would get up in the morning, go to work, go to school. It was like the same thing. I was just determined to do something with my life. I didn't have the answers, and I knew I wasn't like my mother's side of the family there was just something missing. It was that little piece, like that little piece that was missing in my life, and I couldn't figure out what it was, but I knew I needed something. Like, so I'm the only female on my mother's side of the family with a college degree and a business. So, but you don't think of it at that time, you know, you don't think about that, you know, that doesn't go through your mind. What you want to do is you want to survive. You want to try to eat and sleep and study and work. That's basically my life. But there was a flood. I couldn't get home. I stayed with my aunt, and she says, Carla, is it time for you to meet your father? And I said, well, I mean, why not? Right? I mean, if it doesn't go well, I mean, at least I know I'm okay, right? I mean, I'm stabilizing my life. I knew what I wanted in my life, and I always do. Like, I am a straight shooter. I don't know balls about it, right? And so she knew somebody that contacted him, and then I got a phone call from him from Denver. He was in Denver, Cherry Creek, in Denver, Colorado, and he made contact with me. The first time we met was during Memorial Day weekend. And it was so happened that they had just bought a house in Gulf Breeze, Florida. I drove down there for the whole weekend. It was the first time I ever met him. And it was undeniable. It was like, it was meant. I cannot express how the feeling went when I first met him. It was like, I knew that I belonged. Like, I knew there was that missing element, and he was that key. And he was just a wonderful, 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 wonderful person. He was when I needed him the most, and he was. He would call me stubborn. You know, over the years, he was like, "You're so stubborn," or you know, he was always that person. And you know, I was a Southern girl. I spoke really fast when I was Southern, and he would like, "Okay, Carla, it's time to slow it down." You know, pronounce your words. And I'm like, Dad, I'm still going to be me. So, you know, but he was a true inspiration on why my business is where it's at today.
Yeah, that was so like early 90s, right? You said you were 22 or 23.
Yes, that was early 90s. It was before I graduated. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was only here for a very short time.
Really?
Not long enough. Yeah. He died when he was 67, and that was the heartbreak for me. So
he had esophageal cancer, right?
He had esophageal cancer, yes, sir.
Yeah, cancer is just...
Yeah. Now, when we talk about you two, you said there was some similarities in what I was writing, what I've lived, and what is that similarity that we talked about?
Well, I paid my way through school as well.
Yeah.
I never knew my father. As far as both of my parents had traumatic brain injuries when they were... I was 6. They weren't married at the time. I'm the youngest of my father's 3 children. And then my mother got remarried and had 3 more with a different guy. And so I never had, and it's weird because I never really thought about it till recently. Like, why didn't we have visitation rights? We never saw him. He was a coal miner and worked on cars, and he was kind of the black sheep of the family compared to his brother and his siblings, and him and his father didn't see eye to eye. But in any case, I had no relationship with him. So then he ends up having a motorcycle accident, massive brain injury, and he was never the same person, of course, the rest of his life. He died last year. I probably saw him 12 times in my life, and most of that was just as a mentally handicapped, from that injury. And then my mother had a similar injury the year after that when I was 7. And so I don't really feel like I have parents. My parents are everyone that contributed, like our grandparents. It's not like I lived with my mother, but she went to bed at 9:00 with her hairdryer on. And I could do whatever, me and my little brother who lived with her, we could do whatever we wanted in a way. And
then in some ways we're kind of like those 80s kids.
Yeah, I mean,
in some ways
it was a different time, but
yeah.
And so, but at the same time, I worked really hard. I've always had a job since I was 16.
Yeah.
And yeah, the family contributed some things here and there, but I figured out a way to pay myself through school. The front page thing was interesting because I was taking like a business writing class as part of my undergrad, and we had to create like a website or some marketing material, and I stumbled upon front page, and so I kind of dabbled with the computer things in the late 90s, But I guess the only difference is, but genetically. So even though we didn't know our father and we couldn't communicate with him, and have father and son conversation, my brother, oh my goodness, he got like 95% of his DNA and the way his mind works. And then I got some of that too. Just even like, it may not seem like it, but just in like the studio, it's just all pre-programmed, right? It all comes from like my dad. But we never spoke about it, but it's just like the genetics that are kind of passed on. But yeah, I was just kind of thinking of just that grind. It's different. It's not like I'm not a woman and I didn't like start a business that way, but we've been a single income family the whole time. My wife's been at home for 25 years now, and just grinding.
Yeah.
In a way. And so yeah, somehow like just reading your thing, and especially when it comes to like working your way through stuff and whatever. Sometimes I went to community college because it was cheap. And then I went to, that way I didn't have to pay for like a university for 4 years.
Oh, well, I did too. That's how I started. I started out in community college, and I think it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know, if I had some guides, like if I had like people telling me, I think I probably would have joined the military.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have gone a different route because that kind of set with me. But back in high school, I think it was like that part of me was like, there wasn't really that support system set up. Like there wasn't people guiding you and holding your hand to fill out college applications. Like, should I go to college? Because it was normal. I think back then it was like normal, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, everybody makes choices, but I didn't want to be that typical person where I get married, have children.
Yeah.
And there was something that said that I needed to change. I mean, there's a lot of decisions that we could have made that could have been wrong, right? But we're here today to say, okay, we made it. We survived through it. And I think that that's where I have to go. I appreciate life now. Thank you, for all that I've been giving. And, believe me, I mean.
Oh, like the ridicule? So the equivalent would be like going into community college, you would know people would make fun of you. And we called it the University of Route 7, was just this state route, right? And so it would be the equivalent if you lived here, and this is now I'm 47. UAH is a fine institution.
Yeah.
But if I was in high school,
I
would view UAH as I failed because I need to go away, and I need to do something, and I need to make something of myself, and I need to be accepted by some other school. And if I went to UAH, I would just be settling, and it would be like no different than going to community college. That was the mindset that I grew up with.
Well, the mindset was that community college was just the entry point of getting you to these other schools. Now, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. Like I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't I grew up always thinking I wanted to be in mammalogy and study mammals and be Greenpeace. I mean, I grew up that way, or let me go work at a vet office and being a veterinarian. That scope was, but I think that the changing point of that was there was a woman that came to our school. Her name was Miss Axdale, and she set up a computer lab. It was the first time that anyone had a computer lab. She set up these big monitors. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we were all sitting there looking at these things, and they were very basic. We learned basic programming, just basic. If anybody knows what that is, so very basic. And we started doing things that it was just like in awe, like, okay, what is this? And I think that comes back to the days when I was sitting alone a lot of times where kind of like reading those comic books. And I didn't really know that I was somewhat of that nerd aspect, that there was things that I was intrigued by that most girls would be like, that were different. I always felt just a tad on this other side of me, like this is who I really am. Now, I like getting dressed up and doing my hair, but now it's like I'm a farm girl and put on my farm boots and go kick some dirt.
It's funny you were saying that when you were in those programming classes. Now, I never took programming. I certainly understand HTML and XSL, and I can read code, but I've never been a coder. But you would always say how like the printer would start going off, which indicated someone was done with their program.
It would make you so mad. You'd be like, it'd be this big, massive dot, matrix going off, and you're sitting there going, oh, I hate you right now. So, but that's what it was. It was like doing a lot of programming, living in that lab a lot. But community, I want to go back to the community college aspect. I have to honestly say that Huntsville has such a great,
oh my gosh,
what a wonderful opportunity right here in this local area that I'm not saying you got to go anywhere. I mean, kids want to get away from their parents a lot. I want to get as away far from me as possible, but they always come back, sooner or later. But I have to say, what a blessing to see such great community coming together to support the systems here for these kids that are coming out of college, the entrepreneur programs that are out there, just amazing stuff. And if you do not have a job right now, if you don't have an internship in your field, you need to get it. Just so much stuff. Don't be on your computer wasting life away. Get out there, find those opportunities because they are there.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not poo-pooing that in any way. I'm just, for some reason, I succumbed to peer pressure back then or what everyone else's opinion was of me.
Yeah.
Well, now, no, I'm telling my kids, my opinion towards colleges and universities has completely changed.
Oh, yeah. That's what I mean by, like, back then it was like, ooh, you're going to community college. Ooh.
Now it's like, no, you should go to community college or something cheap unless someone's really pursuing you for something or you're really, really interested in something. That's one thing. But if you're not really sure, don't go spend a lot of money somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're going to transfer anyway.
Listen, I drove a Geo Metro all through college. It was rusting on the top.
What color was it?
It was blue.
I remember those Geo Metros.
Yeah.
Was it a 5-speed?
Yeah, why not?
Well, my sister had a Dodge Colt. It was only a 4-speed.
Oh, my gosh. I had a Colt.
Did you?
That was my first car.
Was it a 4-speed?
Yeah.
And it felt like it was going to explode when you hit 60. Like it just needed another gear.
It was awesome because it was like, I'm ready to race now. So I would drive my mother's cars, and she had the more fancier, the Trans Ams and stuff like that, and the Nissan. I forgot what was the Z. I forgot it was the T-tops.
Oh, the Z28.
The Z28.
Yeah.
I would drive the crap out of them, and we would race around the circle.
Toyota Supra. Do you remember those?
Yes, a lot of. Oh my gosh, what was that the ones where they put in because it was cool to go down to the strip down in Panama City and go riding now.
I bet.
Yeah.
I didn't experience that, but I did it like Myrtle Beach had a strip, of course, like Daytona.
Yeah, there's nothing like the strip in Panama City growing up.
Oh, really?
It was like the place to be. This is before MTV came down there. We would car hop. We would jump out of our cars and jump into other people's cars. It was like, that was the kind of thing. Don't do it now. But back then it was like, that was fun. It was great. And then all the boom boom and, it was just a different jive. It was different music. It was different people. And that's how, but I did a lot of racing. Don't tell anybody.
Well, I was going to say, were your parents aware of when Carla would go nuts at Panama City?
No, they went around.
Okay.
We were, it's like it's those, what is it, generating X's, whatever we want to be labeled as now. But it's back then, it was like we disappeared for hours, and so we would drive down from Dothan to Panama City and go partying and, and then, or we stuff ourselves in the back of a truck, about 4 or 5 of us. Obviously, we were not wearing our seatbelts back then.
Yeah. That was optional.
We did a lot of stuff that was stupid.
I'll tell you a real quick story. I'm 16 years old. I take my mother's minivan, which had, if you remember, like the 86 Dodge Caravans, they had like a wood panel.
Yes.
Fake panel thing.
Yeah.
And I drive my buddies this is an 8-9 hour drive from Northern Virginia to South Carolina. And I had maybe $160 in cash. That was it. And we were going to be gone.
You're rich.
7 days. Gas, of course, cost like 85 cents a gallon back then. But on the way, the paneling flew off, and it was vibrating when I would hit like a high speed. And I'm trying to show off my friends, so I'm going like 80 miles an hour, and I shouldn't be. I should have gotten pulled over. But the vibration, eventually the panel flies off, and then I get a flat tire. And luckily, we had got off the interstate, and it was actually very near where Michael Jordan's dad was murdered in Lumberton, North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Very near that. We were in some town, like they have those like bypasses. You're kind of coming down this like a state highway.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, business traffic this way, regular traffic this way. And I couldn't tell which way to go. And I turned the wheel too hard and the tire blows. So we end up in a Hardee's parking lot in Taberville, North Carolina, which at the time was really small. And I think it's grown since then. And somehow I was able to, we didn't have cell phones, of course. This is 1992.
Payphone.
And I just went into the Hardee's parking lot, and there was a cop, and I said, "Sir, I need to get my car towed and get a tire changed. Can you help me?" And I jumped in his cruiser, and we went and found the one tow truck driver in town. He was watching the NASCAR race on TV, so we went inside his trailer and scooped him up. He was wearing jean shorts like Daisy Dukes. It was a sight. And he says, "Where are you at?" I said, "Hardee's," and it was literally half a mile to the service station. Yeah. They went into a shed where they had tires, used tires, and like poured water out of them and said, "Will this do?" And I was like, I guess. And I had to get 2 replaced. So
wow.
I got a tow job and 2 tires, mounted, balanced, everything for $60.
Dude, that's awesome.
And my parents, no one ever knew.
Wow.
I never had to call home for help on what to do. And then we just continued on to Myrtle Beach. And I only had like $100 in my pocket for 7 days. And I ate 1 meal a day.
Yeah. Well, when I was living out on my own, it was like when I was 16 or 17 years old, and it was like decisions as an adult, and I was still really young, and so my life could be a whole different direction right now, which is totally fine. I mean, I love what I do now, but you think back and you're like, there's a lot of things that we did when we were younger that was really just, field parties were awesome. And, but I have to say that when I hit high school, I met the best of friends, and that best of friends got me through the hardest times of my life. I mean, there was times where, food was scarce, or I didn't have a meal. And so all my friends I would go to their house, and their moms and dads would feed, they would feed me. And so, I can say that the changes in my life, I can look back and go, gosh, I'm actually pretty proud about where I'm at today. I thank God every day. Thank you for making me this person that I am. And, I'm thank you for all that you've given me, because it really is, a life of changes and, sacrifices and, survival.
Even though it's easy to say now that you're an inspiration to others, because you had to live through that day by day, right? But now you can look back with the benefit of hindsight, and a lot of that is behind you. Yeah. And people will just, it can be a life changer if someone gets to meet you and hear your story, right, as compared to theirs.
Well, I can say that I think that no matter where you're at in your life, you are, it really is about you. It's not about other people. And if you're making judgments that you should be making, then you need to make good judgments. And life doesn't have to, you don't have to stay in the same spot. You can make changes in your life that make you happy. And I think that's the big thing right now. I think that we're starting to see more people suffer through some mental issues and things like that. I don't remember, I mean, I don't know about you, but growing up, that word wasn't really a normal word for us. It was like, hey, brush it off and just go. Right. Yeah. And do what you need to do. And I knew I had a purpose in life. I can't tell you how many times that I could have quit school, not gone to college, could have ended up like the rest of my family working in a convenience store or a factory job. There was something about that I knew there was much more, and I couldn't figure it out. So when I met my father, that 1%, he believed in me when no one else did. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that 1% in your life can change you. Totally change your life. Is your life a roller coaster? Absolutely. Yeah. You just got to learn how to ride it.
Before, is this Gigi? Margaret? Margaret Marge?
Oh, yeah, that's my Gigi.
And this is your father's mother.
This was my father's mother.
And it's amazing just reading this obituary, because it says, let's see here, Marge was a strong woman who had a successful radio career as an account executive in New York City. And right away, I'm thinking, oh, my goodness. Yeah. We're talking like, what, the 1950s, 1960s here? Worked on prison reform with Eleanor Roosevelt and with her husband, Ed Wine, ran Jimmy Carter's first political campaigns. While she was an account executive in New York City radio, Marge was responsible for an idea for a television program in the mid-50s that eventually became American Bandstand. That I think was Dick Clark's show.
Yes. And she's actually she was pretty mad about that she didn't get the credit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, she was very adamant. She goes, I I was the one who developed that. So she was amazing.
Was it because she was a woman?
Could
they
be.
took her idea?
Could be. Could be.
But that, yeah, I'm like, well, gosh, I keep putting that wrong screen up there. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at your DNA.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you don't know. Well, back then when I was growing up, I didn't know that that DNA was in me. I knew something was, just like you said earlier, you can't get away from your genes. I think it's the parts where we take out that's good, and figure out what works for you as a person, and that's going to give you the strength that you need. And I knew that there's this one time when my father had cancer twice. The first time was when my twins were born. They were little, and then my daughter. And we flew up to Sloan Kettering up in New York because they were specialists up there that could help him. He was basically in stage 1. He survived that, which was amazing because they took out parts of his esophageal and, bring his stomach. It was a whole process thing, right? So he survived it, goes through it. So he goes through he went through the cancer the first time, comes home, dominates, gets on his feet. He's amazing. I'm going through my own trials and tribulations. I was going through my divorce at that time when they were almost going into kindergarten. This is when my twins were going into kindergarten. And I call my father up, hey, Daddy, what do I do? He was on it. The next day, he's at my house, and he's just, he drove all the way from Gulf Breeze all the way to Dothan. He was there. My dad did not miss a beat. So he walks me through the process. He goes, listen, a home is a home, right? It's emotional stuff. What you need is you need to be making some decisions for you and the children. Walk me through the whole process. It was amazing. As soon as I moved down to Gulf Breeze to start my life totally over with twins and I think she was maybe going into the 4th grade at the time. My children were going into kindergarten, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, and I was stunned, right? So what do? My life was completely upturned. Well, as soon as I got there, we get settled in. The following April, we found out that he had stage 4 cancer. And then it was like, okay, maybe there is a reason I'm here. So through all those years that he was going through that battle, which he was on, some experimental drugs at that time. So you got to see that battle. It was that up and down, and it was, it was like, but there was this one time, and this is why I was going down that he was, he couldn't eat. And so they put him in the hospital. They was going to have to put a stent in him. And in that stent, they were afraid to do it in Pensacola at the time because they were afraid they were going to damage. So it was like, okay, what do we do? And we had friends that had a private jet. And listen, you got to understand, you get aligned with people like that. That's going to help you. That's why he survived. And he looks at me. We're having our conversation. This could have been our last conversation we ever had. He said, there's a 50, and he always jokes, this is a 50-50 chance I'm going to come back in a pine box. So you better get all you can in right now. So he was like one of those dudes. It was just honest, right? He was like, hey, but we had this truthful conversation, and he says, I've come to the realize that you are the most stubborn young lady I've ever met in my whole life. Then I also came to the realization that you are just like me. That's right. And I said, wow, you just figured that out. I said, so it was like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Yeah. So I knew that I knew I was like my dad. So, okay, fast forward, comes back. Everything's right. He's walking around like he's a miracle. Like, this man's a miracle. And then soon after that, the CAT scan comes back. I think a year later, he was in the bed, couldn't move. And within a couple months, that was it. And so I said my last goodbye. I can tell you 100% my dad, I was the last person my dad spoke to out of all the people, including my GG. I love my GG. But he was the last person he said, I love you too. So for me, that was, those parts of being there, being that my dad was there, now that he's gone, I look at myself going, wow, I am so like my dad. Like, there's expectations, there's priorities. I tell my kids, like, hey, you better live the right life. You better make good judgments. You better live with what decisions you make. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm sounding like him, which I'm pretty proud about, you know?
How much time elapsed from you? Were you present and holding his hand as he passed? And he said he loves you to you?
Oh yeah. Well, you know, there was a process. I think it was like hospice was at our house, at his house. He wanted to pass at the house, and so hospice was there. And so it was like one of those things where they call you. I was on my way to go look at bridesmaid's dress. I just been engaged to my husband today, Joe, who really, you know, he's retired military, and he was a huge rock for me. And all I know is that I didn't want to, you know, because people were like, oh, you should get married before your dad passes. I'm like, that's not the way my father would want, right? So he passed right before my wedding. So that was very difficult for me. So it was like I did the, you know, the respect for him and, you know, and all those things. But yes, I was there the last second, the last breath, watching my father. I finally had to tell him, you know, my brothers were there, my nephews were there and all that. And my grandma Gigi, we all, you know, being the Jewish family, you surround your loved ones. Yeah. And so we told him it was okay. Don't be scared. It's okay. We're going to be okay. And as soon as we said we're going to be okay, that's when he took his last breath. So yes, it haunted me for a long, long time.
Did it? Mm-hmm. And he was like in hospice, and this was in his own bed.
Yes, in the Jewish tradition, you know, you're not really supposed to be cremated, and so he didn't want people seeing him, and so out of respect for him, so we honored my father. We took his ashes, and he was spread all over the world because he traveled a lot. He loved traveling. It was just his love, his passion, and those things were so important to him that we respected that for him.
And you got to travel too, didn't you?
I did travel, you know, of course. Why not?
No, it's interesting that before you even really knew him, or as you got to know him, right? And you don't realize till later how much you had in common.
No. He was hands down. I say it a lot, and I probably talk about him a lot in my podcast. I talk about him on my website. I want people to remember that he was the biggest piece that really keeps me going today. I look at his pictures going, I don't want to work today. And he's like, yes, you are. You better get up and get going. And so I miss him today. Yeah. Every day.
Okay. So going back to when we first started talking about your father, he was one who said, put your name in your company name. Just like when we read his obituary, he had Mike's in his name. So here we are, Designed by Carla. How much has the logo, now the name hasn't changed at all. You've kept it.
Yes.
But how much has the logo or other aspects of your business changed in the 22 years?
Can I say a lot?
Yeah, sure.
You know, so my first logo was it had my name. It said Designed by Carla, but it had the hummingbird in it. It was a hummingbird logo. And I go back to that, you know, the whole point was like work as fast as possible because I have twins at home and I don't, you know. Yeah. So I was known as, you know, I love the fact that the hummingbird was that part of that logo. And then the after that, it was the magnolia tree because I wanted people to know that, you know, Southern hospitality and customer service was important to me. So the magnolia tree was part of that. And actually the magnolia flower is actually in my logo. And so that's where some of that comes to those changes in that. So I've kind of becoming more subdued. You know, I was bright colored all over the place. Now I'm trying to reorganize. But as far as like services, well, pretty much everything, you know, in the marketing industry I've done. But I have a vision. Anything that I do, I always vision it first and then I design after that. So I don't just, you know, go at it without some research behind it.
Sure.
You know, and I think that's where the technical aspect comes into play.
So the hummingbird was your kind of you're flapping at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's almost like a modern day drone. It's very stable.
Yes.
So you're stable, but you're also going fast, right?
Yeah, I think the hummingbird represented me very well at that time.
Okay.
It's good, do it, get it done. Let's get us done. And back then I did just enough. Like I had just enough clients to keep me stable. I wasn't flashy back then. I didn't even have a website for a long time.
Really?
No. Because I was busy building other people's businesses. Even today,
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Word of mouth marketing has always worked for me. That's the way it's been the play for me, even today.
Yeah. So, I mean, when was the last time you really had to worry about a pipeline of work? I mean, you kind of get to a point with word of mouth where seemingly you talk to entrepreneurs and like, I don't know, I don't even really have to advertise anymore. It just keeps coming, or I have this customer and then it turns into the next project and the next project, right? Or they refer you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's always been that way though. I've never advertised myself. So I think it's just the being in the right place at the right time, talking to the right people, focused conversations that mean something, because not everybody, like not every client, not every person I meet is a client for me. Mm-hmm. It's like an interview process for me too, right? And so, that there's steps that you have to take to say, okay, I'm serious about my business, and so there's a test that I'm also giving out to my clients, potential clients, mm-hmm. and if they want to do it, because if they can't even fill out a simple business sheet, then that lets me know that maybe they're not ready. And a lot of times I'll tell people, maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe I'm not the person for you. And that's fine. I'm perfectly fine. But as far as work, it is there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't bother me a whole lot like it used to. Back in the day, I would pray that there was a paycheck in the mail to pay and feed my kids. Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely. And anybody that wants to do this types of business, I don't care if you're in what type of business is, you have to put a lot of time into it to really make it pay off. And it's going to take a couple of years to do that. Some do very well if they've got some avenue that's backing them, or a partnership that's behind them, or they've got some way of some secret borrowing money to do that value, then maybe I don't know. I'm just doing my own thing. Well, I can tell you video marketing is a very intense, detailed business, mm-hmm. and there are a lot of really great video marketers here, and they do an amazing job depending on who they're doing business with. I'd rather they do that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because my specialty is building businesses from where they're at to getting them to grow and expand. Yeah. So that's where I would like to keep my focus at. And branding photographers, Caroline's an amazing individual, but not exactly the focal point of my business.
Yeah, I was referencing when you interviewed the lady from Face to Face,
Vicki Morris.
Mm-hmm. And you had asked a question of, it's kind of like, are you worried about your competitors? What's the competitive landscape? And her answer was, yeah, maybe like 3, 4, or 5 years ago, that would have been a concern, but now she's realized that there's plenty of work for everyone to go around, for everybody, and everybody has a niche or does something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And once you kind of buy into that, there's that co-opetition, right? Yeah, you're sometimes competitors, but a lot of times it's just better. Human beings rise. We do better when we help other people. Yeah. When we serve other people. It's just it's a principle. Yeah. And it's the golden rule type thing. But and if you do that, then goodness should come your way. Good karma, right? Yeah. I
think that's, like I said, is like some people can refer me as more of a boutique type company, but I don't necessarily. I think that's I think we put labels on things that sometimes as like, I think that I'm more of a, let's get it done. Let's see what we can do. And then let's see how we grow this. Mm-hmm. But people have come and gone. And the thing about this, as far as competition goes, there is so much more. There's a lot more people coming here. There's a lot more marketing people coming. There's a lot of people that are in this, in this small space. But that I think that we sometimes put ourselves in a box and we realize that that's where we want to be. I don't necessarily think that way. I have clients in all kinds of places. They don't have to be here in Huntsville. Actually, they are not. And I can manage just fine doing an exceptional job for their business. Even some of my clients have been with me for 10, 15, almost 20 years. And so for me, it's like, I'm okay with that. As long as they're okay and I'm communicating, I can still do that job. As far as competition goes, like you said, everybody's got their own niche. Right. And I think that I also think it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
With that customer.
And let me ask you this, since you're SEO and you have your own podcast, one thing that really frustrates me is if I go to through my website, I have, I think I have Gmail, but through Bluehost, I have just like old, ugly webmail. And then everything gets forwarded or something like that. I think that's the way I have it set up. So I have all of this junk mail. Yeah. That's mostly, it's always like, dear whomever, dear Our Town, your website seems great, but your SEO sucks. Yeah. You should be having thousands and millions and more visitors. And like, okay. And so it's like delete. Same person contacts me every single day, some robot. But I'm like, let's just be honest with ourselves, and this, if I was to hire Carla, I would want you to be honest with me. Like, listen, content-wise, my show right now is for Greater Huntsville, North Alabama. Right. I honestly don't think that someone in Iowa is going to want to watch it. They might watch an episode if they happen to know somebody. Right. Joe Carlucci or Carla Stiles was their sorority sister, or or their fraternity mate to Joe. Like,
I got a fan base. I understand. No,
what I mean? But it's like, don't tell me. And even yesterday, I had someone on Instagram, kind of the same thing. I get these like follower requests from podcast promotion, and we can guarantee you thousands of listeners. Like, tell me how. Well, no, just trust me. Like, I don't think you're going to give me thousands or millions of people. I don't. I think I could do better with SEO, but ultimately with the market I'm serving, those could be very short-lived numbers when they realize, oh, okay, well, who's Carla Stiles? Yeah. I live in Washington State. Why would I care about what's going on in Huntsville, right? Right. And so it just, if I was to hire you, I want Carla, just be straight with me. Yeah. Should I be just barely over 100 YouTube subscribers after a year and 66 episodes? Is it just a patience thing? Should I do better with my clips? Just help me out. But don't tell me, oh, it's just we need to put some crazy tags in, which is, I think, ultimately what a lot of them do. They just put some ridiculous, hot, trendy terms. Right. And all of a sudden you get this artificial spike.
Yeah, I think that sometimes you have to really pinpoint your natural language queries and what makes you special. And then localizing SEO is so important nowadays than it was before, because it was so broad back in the day. You know what I mean? And we could get away with like maybe a 2-word keyword structure, whereas now we're looking at long tail keywords more than ever because Google updated their Hummingbird, a couple years ago or so. And so they're recognizing those natural language queries that, when you pick up your mobile phone, more than often you're seeing those verbiages in your phone or you're looking it up on your phone. And so Google recognizes that. So you can't just limit those 10 to 20 keywords, those basic primary or secondary keywords anymore. You have to understand that long tail keywords, those natural language queries play a huge part. So that's what's really important, is talking about how do you create an SEO structure, a cluster of topics, right? And as far as like businesses like you with your podcasting, the outskirt of that is like you want to stabilize yourself here in Huntsville, but then your reach is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Yeah. Because you can start thinking of outside of that, of your industry. But yes, I mean, you're going to get those spam emails like that. They're going to guarantee you this. I get them. Listen, I get them.
I'm sure you do.
And they're going to like, hey, your website. And I'm like, oh, be quiet. Yeah. Robot, spam,
and then their first thing is always like, and if you engage with them, then it's like, I can help you. Do you take PayPal? It's like you just want to go. They want to go straight to payment. And that's
those are bad emails. Yeah. Listen. My clients will forward over an email to me and go, "Hey, Carla, what do you think about that? Do you think this is spam?" Yes. Most of the time, 99.99% of the time, it's spam. But no, I like my thing that's important is to communicate over to my clients what is healthy for them right now.
Yeah.
Because is to get them to thinking about their website, get them to thinking about the topics and the products that that they offer. Mm-hmm. So let's say that they're in this particular industry, like HR related profession, right? So you can't just put everything HR related or HR professionals or HR agency or firm or whatever. You've got to go kind of like 2 or 3 deep to go, okay, what are people really searching for? Yeah. What do they need? It's like the same thing for you. It's like taking your website, breaking it down and looking at the little tiny pieces that are really bringing you that business. Yeah. And so, yes, so you have to have those real honest conversations. But a lot of times clients, they don't really understand it. So that's why you only give them bits and pieces at a time. I think we overwhelm our people and overstimulate people with data. Yeah. And data analytics. We overstimulate them. We throw a report at them and expect them to be able to read it. They don't know how to read it. Right. Unless they go to school or they go research it themselves. You can't throw a book at them and say, hey, go figure this out. You have to be that liaison. And that's something that's very important with your clients.
I have a picture pack ready for you. Now, you are an incredible poster to Instagram, and I don't know how many years back it goes, but
well, Facebook actually goes long back. Does it? Because Facebook was before Instagram.
Well, that's true. I've kind of
I was before Facebook.
I've kind of settled on my top 2 favorites are LinkedIn. Like you mentioned before, I love LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah.
It's the easiest to use, and I feel like I get the best stats that I don't have to pay $1 million.
I just recorded a workshop.
Did you?
Yeah.
The LinkedIn Learning?
Yeah. I actually do have an actually recorded workshop now to teach people the basics on how to get their platform up to par and teach them how to engage and connect to people.
So we can link to that?
Yeah,
or is it up?
Sure.
It's up and running?
Well, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's in process.
Okay. Well, when we run
along with everything else,
we'll run this as a clip and promote it.
Okay.
So anyway, all these pictures come from your Instagram. There's nothing like I pulled like the obituaries.
I have
from
no
my
shame.
Research.
Yeah.
But and so there's a variety there, but really just the idea is just to provide some commentary. And if somebody was to stumble upon it, like, okay, well, what is this all about?
Okay.
All right. Here's the first one.
Oh, that's the rebrand for the WDC Foundation. That was okay. So when we first started that rebrand, Jennifer wanted something that was strong and powerful and feminine at the same time. And so we started out with just the name of the WDC Foundation, trying to work with the font. Mm-hmm. And then she wanted something with pearls in it and nothing, to be honest with you, pearls look like circles. And so we were like, okay, this is, how's this going to work? So back in, I think we were trying to get it launched before the Women Honoring Women event last year. And so to me, like when you're rebranding, you can't force it. You can't just do something and get it out there just because you've got deadlines. It's got to mean something. And so I had her take a step back and say, okay, Jennifer, can I scratch this? Because this is not emotionally connecting for me. I can't sell it to you. This is not working. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit on this for a minute and I'm going to figure this out. So I was just pondering, where is this going to take me? How does that even represent them at all? And so I was thinking of the word transformation. And I'm in the shower. I don't know how many of you, but I like to design. When I'm stuck, I'm in the shower and I'm shampooing my hair and I'm like, oh my gosh, transformation, butterfly, right. And that's how it kind of like started. I'm like, and at first I did dragonfly and then I thought of butterfly and then I thought butterfly, it's fluent, it's fresh. And so that concept of the butterfly was designed. The color combinations were her jewel tones of what she wanted. And that's what came up. That's and cool. So it was beautiful. I mean, I think it's beautiful.
That's a metamorphosis, right? Isn't that process of which it goes from caterpillar to butterfly? It
is metamorphosis, but I love the word transformation.
No, transformation. I just want to make sure that I learned something in school.
Yeah, transformation.
Okay, we already did that one. So this is cool, and I'm glad Wendy's now here because Wendy had a color consultant come in, and she has a color palette. So whenever she goes shopping, she just pulls out her wheel and makes sure that it fits her, right?
Yeah.
Now this is I guess by month.
Yeah.
You do this every month?
I have the girls. We work on mood boards because sometimes I use mood boards for themes of how I want things to look for the month. And so I love color. Just like I said, I transfer my logo's black and white, so I use color as the accent of things. And so mood boards kind of set the pace for that. What's the theme of the month? And so we create mood boards to do that for those colors, to give people kind of an idea of like, hey, I don't really know what color combinations work really well. Maybe they can get some inspiration from that.
I love the picture on the left. Is that like a black rose?
Yes.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have that shot, or did you have a photographer shoot all these?
No, this is
just taken from.
You gotta love Canva.
Okay.
I went from Adobe to Canva. Believe me, I've been using Canva for a long time. I think before it became really, really popular.
Okay.
So.
All right, next one. This is.
Oh.
I'm not exactly sure why I chose this one, but I guess I had some reason.
This right here. This was actually shot by my cousin Shunnarah. She's an absolutely an amazing photographer in North Carolina. She actually owns her own photography. Listen, anybody on my dad's side of the family, we're very talented people. We just kind of just do stuff, right? Yeah. We all do something. Like it's in the creative market. It doesn't matter. It's whether it's in photography, whether it's in actual physical art. We are in the arts. And so we met up in North Carolina, and she took this picture. And I have to say, when she took this picture, it changed how I saw myself. And so I wanted people to see, because I was such a workhorse that people see me as this piece of the puzzle. I want people to start seeing me as this, hey,
you're a person.
I'm a person too. Yeah. I'm human. I had a drink.
Well, and this is the one thing that really stuck out to me while I listened to your Power Circle. I think it was the Power Circle podcast that you did was and I talked a little bit about this with I think Ashley Ingalls Ross, maybe, where we're all kind of actors. We all act like whether you're in corporate world. So the key is to be able to see someone in a different light doing something else and not in the only mode that you see them. So if it's your boss, right, or there's someone at the company, or your doctor, or it doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. When you see them in a different element, then you realize, oh, they're just a human being with foibles and weaknesses, and they may be a big nerd or whatever. Yeah. And it can really change how whatever fear or intimidation that you had, because you just realize, okay, sometimes a corporation or the government will allow someone to appear to be a lot more powerful and capable than they really are.
Well, as a Southern girl, right? We have a Southern accent. I didn't realize that I had such a Southern accent until as I gotten older. Back then I was really, believe it or not, I mean, Patricia Sims laughed at me because I did a podcast with her, and I said to her, when I was younger, I was actually more of an introvert. And I was very quiet because I was picked on a lot when I was a kid. I was bullied a lot, which is that people may not believe that or not, but it was a very true statement. I was very quiet. I was to myself a lot. And so during that time I didn't believe in myself. When I would speak, I don't pronounce words the best, right? I own who I am, and I'm okay with that now. Back then I was like, if I stayed quiet, people wouldn't put too much emphasis on me, and wouldn't pick on me as much. And so now it's like, I don't even care. I'm like, take me as I am or don't take me at all. And I'm more like, I'm free to be who I am now more than ever. And I used to be really shy in front of the camera. I didn't want people to know my personal life. I didn't want people to know my strides and struggles. I want them to, you know what I mean? So now it's like, I'm getting older, and I'm like, I got to start enjoying life a little bit more. And so,
hence that picture. Now, this is one of your reports.
This is the impact report. Grace actually we work on case studies now. I haven't released all of them yet, but we're starting to launch all of our case studies because I want people to start seeing the work that we do. We're so busy promoting and launching things for our clients that sometimes I want people to see what we do. And this is an impact report. I designed part of it last year, and then Grace came on board and finessed it, and then the colors and all that. So, but this is what we call a demo of what it would look like if it was printed out.
Do you got you're on Spotify?
Yes, sir.
Do you get your little report at the end of the year? It's kind of fun when you get your report and it's like, here's your number of episodes, and it kind of reminds me of this in a way, like just here's your podcast report.
Yeah, it is. I think it was really important to use the impact report to sell the aspect of what this program was all about and why you should contribute to it, and why it's so important to give back to our community.
And we're visual. And those are very simple visuals.
Yeah, it's a very good visual. Yes, sir.
All right. And then here's a testimonial. So if you own any business, what a wonderful way, whether it's solicited or unsolicited, to have someone say, I've had the honor. In this case, this is Mike Bean from Passion HR Consulting. I have had the honor and privilege of having Carla and her team support and promote Passion HR Consulting. We have been amazed at how she has allowed my company to have an expanded online footprint. I've been told countless times that my company has great social media presence. I attribute my success to what Carla does for Passion HR. Looking forward to continued success in a long-term professional relationship with Carla and her team.
Yeah. When I first moved here, Mike was the first person that actually came up to me at one of the hot coffee events and introduced himself. And when I got here, I didn't know anybody. And I was like, okay, let's do this leap of faith of my husband just retired from the military. We just came in from Nebraska, got settled here. I was in the process of revamping my business at the time. Because, there's times and points in your business that you got to go, okay, well, I'm actually in that process right now. And so I had to revamp my business and like, okay, what's my new model? Who's staying, who's going, right? Mm-hmm. Who's going to move forward? And so someone told me about hot coffee. It was a free event. And you got to remember, in Nebraska, I didn't travel a whole lot because, my husband was always gone all the time and I was there raising my children. And then the businesses that I had were stable. So I didn't really have to go out and find clients at that time. And Mike came up and introduced himself to me. And he had just launched. He was in business with Passion HR. He was a small, it was just him. And I think it was Vicky Sickle at the time. And he was like, can I have coffee with you? Let's talk about my business. And it started out with no traffic to his website to let's revamp this website. What are you hiding?
Yeah.
And it was just like, and we've had years of relationships together and
that's awesome.
Continuous.
I love it. Is this as essence, is this kind of where coffee and hustle came from?
Yes.
And just the definition of hustle?
Yeah.
It's a verb, the only controllable pillar of success.
Yes. It's a true statement. I think that it's got to be a part of your industry. And, a lot of times I've had people tell me, you work too hard or you should relax or, or, hey, you're intimidating or whatever. And I'm like, I can't change who I am. Right. But I'm learning to be a better person or a better version of myself. But I don't know any different. And so hustling is like a word of like, let's get this done. Right. I don't want to mess around. Let's get, what I mean? There is no pause. There's times when things are important. And the word hustle is just a part of my vocabulary.
Did your dad inspire you with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Figured he'd have something to
he
do with
was that. He was a force to be reckoned with.
So this is I'm assuming the VDCA was a customer of yours.
Actually, still this is his third business.
Veteran Disability Claim Assistance.com.
That's Mark.
And this is your marketing package, if you will, for the revamped website, which is very important of how it looks on mobile.
Yes.
Extremely important.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments on that?
Mark definitely wanted to get back into the community and he wanted to get involved in helping other veterans support, getting them the needs and the requirements and the benefits that they needed. And a lot of guys don't know what they can get, or they submitted their retirement and their benefits a long time ago, but they realize maybe I need to resubmit and I can get better benefits. And there's guys out there that the paperwork is long, the process is long, and we have a lot of guys out there that are going through a lot. My husband retired military along with the guys that he was part of. It is a cycle that we should be more supportive because these guys are trying to refine their purposes. And Mark helps them with that. He's a retired military dude. He is very passionate in what he does. He also has a business called Mentor Military in S-Top. He helps a lot of the younger recruits fill out those all those paperwork pieces that, things that they need help with. He actually helps them with that stuff.
That's
so
cool.
this was probably his third business that I work on.
That's awesome. And this is the BNI Act. And I brought this up on purpose because I went to my first BNI chapter event.
Yeah.
I was invited to one of the Huntsville chapters.
Did Cherry invite you?
No,
okay.
Gabriel Kinsley.
Okay.
And then I went to the Stove House. They just had like their annual breakfast and all the chapters were there.
Yeah, how was it?
It was interesting.
It was crazy, right?
Yeah, it was a lot more like kind of like going to like a Jimmy Buffett concert or like yesterday was May the 4th Be With You, where it's like dress up, or a Ragnar.
Yeah.
Where you wear costumes and it's like, whoa. Like,
it's overstimulating. When you first walk in, you're like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
Like you walk in, you sign your name, and you're like, but there's a lot of people in that BNI that really support each other in their businesses. Oh, yeah. And they dedicate a lot of their time to do that. And that's my friend Maria. She is on the podcast that you were listening to called Power Talk, and she is a magnet of just empowerment for women. She holds a lot of things now she does other things like yoga and all these things that she's very well known in here in Huntsville. But I was standing there talking to, I think it was Vicki Morris at the time. We were standing there talking, and I look over to the corner and there's Maria with her hands on her hip. Hey, and no one's around her. She's just standing there by herself. And I'm looking over there. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have not seen each other since COVID.
Oh,
we used to be a part of the Girl Boss program with Tiffany. Tiffany did this thing called Girl Boss here. It was local Girl Boss. It was Girl Boss group. And it was a great group of women. We got together once a month and it was so inspiring. We used to do it at Tangle Strings, and Danny needs to reopen that place because he does the guitar strings. Mm-hmm. But Tangle Strings was awesome. It was a great place. It was a great place for us to hang out. And I met Maria through that program, and we just are connected. I'm actually going to one of her events in Nashville in September. And I'm super excited about.
That's cool.
It's a 3-day weekend. I've never done things like that before, but I'm drawn to do it now.
Well, and like you were saying, if you're a small business owner or any size business, BNI is structured to be very helpful.
Yeah.
And they meet every week. And they all report in, and they're highly encouraged to bring guests.
It's a huge accountability.
And they report on. They'll say like, we've given them $1.5 million in business, which means they've referred that to one another.
Yes.
And I felt great because my first time I went, I was like, okay, I'm going to be the new guy and let me shock them. Rather than just say, hey, I'm a visitor, I'm just visiting, I got something. Yeah. And so I told the guy who was sitting at my table who was interested in being a property manager like at apartment complexes. It's like, I just interviewed a guy named Eric Gonzalez Tablada from Nowcom. Yeah. Give him a call. And sure enough, they're talking. Yeah. Because Nowcom, he works for Chase, NAI Chase, like commercial real estate. And they've got some apartment complexes. So yeah. They might be looking for a property manager.
I think it's so important. Not that we don't need these programs like BNI and networking groups, but it's also really good. Like that, I think when we talk about competition and things like that, sometimes there's people that you meet that may not meet your criteria that you should turn around and refer to, like you said, match them with other people, because sometimes those relationships actually come back to you tenfold. Absolutely. Right.
Let's see what we have next. I can't even remember. Oh, something with you had a fire.
Oh, that was a chicken fire. I live out in the country now, and I was part of the fire department, volunteer fire department. My husband is still continuing. He's getting his 160 certification right now, which is very difficult because they go through all these GFRs and things like that. I commend anybody that is in volunteer program that goes out and helps the community. You have no idea. You're lucky. You're living in Huntsville, but on the outskirts of Huntsville, there's some big communities that are growing that do not have that support system set in. Yeah. And they rely on the volunteer program set up for fire and rescue. So these people go through that fire department, or, they're trained, and we have to go through processes to do what we do. but this was an chicken fire at one of the chicken complexes, and I did not realize that those buildings are worth millions of dollars. So they were getting it ready for a new shipment of chickens, and it was on fire on the backside of this chicken fire. Very difficult to get to with the fire trucks. I was running around like a crazy woman. I lost I didn't have socks on in my boots.
Oh my gosh.
So my feet were sliding around in my boots, and I was stepping in cow manure, and I stunk so bad.
Oh gosh.
By chicken. It smelled like chicken. Ugh. It was so gross.
I would have thrown up.
I didn't throw up, but let me tell you, you do what you have to do. And these guys, this is what happens. And then not only that, but not just one fire department in that community comes that. It's a support system set up. So there's so the first one gets called, and then other fire departments show up to help and support each other.
Sure.
I had to tell you, get involved in your community. Know what's going on. Know the people that's in it, because you can be that big support system. And this is really an eye-opening. That is an eye-opening experience.
I bet. You know, I often look at my podcast, and every episode is just one big story. And if I think back to Drew Gilbert, he's a volunteer fireman with Harvest.
Yeah.
And his day job is the First Stop, the homeless shelter.
Right.
Or homeless, I shouldn't say homeless shelter. They provide services to the homeless. But he's a volunteer fireman, and it was a great episode.
Yeah.
You know, and just a great American.
Yeah.
His mother taught in the inner city of Birmingham in the public school. You know, so she was a very noble job and career, and everything that they do is just all about public service.
I have to tell you though, and to kind of we need to highlight those people more often, because I think in some ways or another, I mean, like when you invited me to your podcast, I'm like, oh, what have I got? You know, what do I have to offer? You know what I'm saying? I'm just a person, right? Doing my job.
But far more than that.
Well, I mean, that's so sweet. But what I'm saying is that I think that there's got to be points in time where we look at our life and go, what more are we supposed to be doing? And that's where we go. I think that we give to the community, we go to events, we support by writing a check. But what takes you to what's real big balls for you is to put on to get up in the middle of the night to go help somebody, or get in, go throw on a fire suit that's like 5,000 pounds on. I'm exaggerating, but it's heavy. And put on a helmet and go put out a chicken fire. Yeah. And listen, I even actually got to do a meth house one time where a trailer, come on. I mean, let's talk about realism. We've got a real community that we're not really talking about. There's a community of problems that we are not focusing on. And we've got a community that we should be supporting more of. And that's our volunteer aspects. The outside community needs some more support, needs more people. Get involved, do things, be part of it, because when you're part of it, you appreciate it more, because they're going to come to your house one day. You're going to need their help. You're going to want to do it. So, get out from behind your TV sometimes and go spend a few hours volunteering, whether it's at a dog shelter, do something.
Yeah, this is exactly the comment that I made to John Allen when I interviewed him from the Committee of 100. Was I look at like his resume, or since I've met you, and just about everybody I've interviewed has something in common where they do something beyond just their job. They're involved in a nonprofit. And even if it's a part of your job, it's still necessary, right? That you're working with nonprofits. And it's not all just about going after some big money grab and getting these top Fortune 500 companies or something to be your clients. And I was telling him that like the commute that I had in Virginia will suck the life out of you, where there is no energy left over by the time you get home,
right?
To like do something, like get involved in your community. Yeah. And so if you can, word to the wise, if you're like, choose your career carefully and choose where you live and stay within your means and all that, so you don't have to commute a mega distance to work each and every day. Because then they would open up maybe I could be a volunteer fireman, or maybe I could do this or that, because I do have 2 or 3 or 4 extra hours now, because I wasn't slogging away with my job.
Well, we talk about people being sad or unhappy and frustrated I think we're seeing more and more of that now than ever before. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see more of the anxiety and the stresses, a little bit more higher levels of that. And I think that self-reflection of what makes you happy has got to be there. And if you're not taking time out to do that, but also that if you're not in a path of direction of where you want to be in your life, it's okay to change. It's okay to go outside of that, because sometimes like just going and volunteering, and that fills your soul. And if you fill your soul with something that makes you happy, you may be making some different life-changing decisions. You know, I live on a farm now. I mean, put that in your... I live on a farm out in the middle of nowhere. I drive a tractor. I get dirty with my boots. I got 6 dogs. I've got a pet deer now.
That's right.
His name is Baby.
I saw a video you had put where he comes up and
he does. He was our neighbor's deer. When we say neighbors, I mean, they're not like but it's our neighbor's deer, and we didn't know it. And
his mother was killed.
His mother was killed, and he comes up our driveway. Now you got to remember, I live on like 2 or 3 football fields back from my road, and this deer's walking up, and it comes in, like literally in my face, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Bambi. I found Bambi, and I'm like, what do I feed it? And I'm grabbing some hay, and it wouldn't eat it, and I was like, what do I do? This thing has got to eat. So I call my girlfriend Teresa at Frog Hollow. She owns a little nursery there. It's like, listen, there's a deer. She owns over 100 acres, and her acreage has been in her family for generations. Her mother has been out there. She was born and raised out there on the same corner.
Wow.
Right? So you're talking about some history, get to know your people.
Yeah.
Right? And I would say that what's important is getting to know the older generation, because they've got a lot of information that's really shareable. This deer comes up, and I call her, and she goes, get us some pears, get us some fruit. And I was like, what do I have? I got some pears. So I went out and I went to Tractor Supply and bought this massive, big, huge pound of corn.
Yeah.
I was like, hey man, I said, y'all got some deer stands around here? And he goes, oh, we just put them up. And I'm like, listen, I need deer food. And I go in and get this massive bag, and I couldn't find him the next day. And I'm like, oh, he's gone. So we're out there planting some trees on Saturday, and here he comes. And he was so excited, and I got to be watching my back because he's kind of, a little frisky.
Yeah.
But, I'm like, dude, I'm not your mama. But anyways, I put some corn I threw some corn at him because I didn't know the interaction, right? So I threw some corn at him. He's eating it. I'm like, all right, let's corn. He follows me. He starts following me like a child. I'm like, all right. So I just thought it was the cutest thing, and I'm taking cute pictures of him, and I'm taking video. I'm like, oh my gosh, Bambi. I've got my real life Bambi. It's my favorite story. When you were a kid, remember Bambi was the best told story when we were in Disney, right? And here he was. So, yes.
Well, how do you find out that it belonged to your neighbor?
She stopped. She saw us. She saw him, and she drove over there, and she goes, I just came to the field. I've got 5 buckets of strawberries, and he loves strawberries. So she starts giving me strawberries.
What does she name him?
Bambi. Not Bambi. I'm just kidding. No, okay. Baby.
Baby. Okay.
Yeah. So he showed up. Yesterday, and he is down the driveway. We see him come up on the cameras, and he's eating some corn. I put it in a little bowl, and I come out, and because I brought him some strawberries, and he's down the driveway, and I'm like, "Hey, baby!" And he just turns around, and he's just flying back like a dog. And I was like, this is so cool.
That's awesome.
So we have guinea quail. We have guinea quail on our land that just comes through. I don't know if you know what guinea quails. They look like turkeys. And
I don't know. No, that's a new one.
Guinea quails. They just freely. They're crazy. They're supposed to be better than chicken meat, but
really,
yeah.
Wow.
You learn a lot.
That's cool. Listen to the Carla, just the life of many different things. Now, there's one more picture I want to show.
Okay.
And that's just because it's funny when you go through pictures and you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't, I know that person that Carla's with. So it's like 1 degree of separation.
Oh, absolutely.
Where we live, right?
Okay.
But I need to know, this is Alexander Shunnarah.
Oh, yes.
And his billboard, I don't know how much the guy spends, but it must be like $1 million a month on billboard advertising, because everywhere in Alabama, there's an Alexander Shunnarah
I don't know
billboard.
why, but I was starstruck. was kind of weird because I was like expecting. I went to a Southern Summit a marketing summit down in Birmingham years and years ago, and I took Mike with me, Mike Bean. I was like, Mike, come with me. Him and Stephanie come with me to this marketing event, and I was just like, I really want to hear I wanted to hear his story, and how did he stay in business so long? And he is so old school.
Really?
So we get in line, we get up there to shake his hand, and he goes, "Hi, my name is Alexander Shunnarah." It was so low key, and I'm like, dude, where's the "Hey, I'm out," you know what I mean? That real robust personality. Not at all. Like totally different. So he brought his marketing director with him, and she was literally amazing. That what they would do is starting to brand him more and bring him outside of the scope of his business, which is, I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. He has his own Instagram outside of his own business. So they're branding him more, which is genius. But they work on his marketing, like they put in over 40 hours a week in just his marketing. But he got up and he actually spoke about how he did things old school. He said that things, before the Yellow Pages, he said he would sit at a bar and he would have like a glass, he's like, I know people probably thought I was a drunk all the time because I was always at the bar, but he said it was just seltzer water. And he said he went in and actually all he did was strike up conversations. And he said, and that's how he started his business, was communicating and talking to people. And then all of a sudden, he said he got into doing the Yellow Page ads. I don't know if people remember the Yellow Page ads were awesome back then. Remember, we used to do prank calling with that, but stuff like that. But I mean, come on. But he eliminated that and went into straight billboards. But he said the one thing that really struck me about him, that really talked to me about brand identity, was that he is the brand identity, which is if you stripped his logo away, you took his font away, no writing, and just used his color combinations, you would still know that it's him. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what an inspiration. So for me, I like finding people that can inspire me, and he was definitely one of those on my top list.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for providing some background on that, because when you're new to Alabama and you see this guy everywhere,
he's great about making fun of himself.
Yeah,
he's just amazing, I think. So,
well, Carla, it's been fun. Having you. Well, this is starting to freak out. I'll have to watch that. Any final shout-outs or thoughts?
So thank you for allowing me to come today to take up your time. I know you're a busy man too, and taking time out to get to know me and using me to get to know, who we are as a people. And I really do appreciate that opportunity. I want to say thank you to my children for the years of just being a part of the life that I've lived, and hopefully maybe one day I can continue to be that inspiration that they need. And I want to say thank you to my husband, who has been a huge support system, who just allowed me to do whatever when it comes to my business, and being that support is really important to me so that I can still be me. And I also think that I'm still trying to figure it out. Even at today, you still try to figure it out, and it's okay to change and be happy.
Absolutely
doing it.
Well, thank you for being transparent.
Yeah,
and
I hope so.
Allowing, like, I knew what I had prepared and kind of what I wanted to go through, and then you had said at the very beginning, even before I think we hit record, like, well, I don't know if I'm that interesting. Like, everyone has a story, and then how amazing is it to enter now the fact that you don't meet your dad till you're 22 or 23 years old, and then what a massive impact he had on your life, right, and even still does. So.
I wish it, and there's some parts of me that's like I can still hear his voice in my head a little bit, but what an important aspect of knowing the fact that I had that, and I know that a lot of people don't get that opportunity, or they don't never get to connect with their father or whatever. But I embraced it, and I still embrace it today. And if you've got questions about your life, get the answers that you need, because it really, a lot of times that solves a lot of the things that you may have been missing out on.
Well, all the best. I'm going to see you around, I'm sure.
And I'll be on Instagram.
And please remember to check out the Coffee and Hustle podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And you've got I think you have kind of 2 versions of that, but you can find that on Spotify. That's where I found it.
Thank you.
Anywhere else. So, and Designed by Carla.
Thank you. Gosh, my heart goes out to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.